When we talk about selling, do we push the customer with our product and offer, or do we make the customer buy? The question here is make the customer buy, not sell. Do we sell or do we tell? Selling is all about making the customer an adult education. When we talk about elderly people, everybody has got an ego. So we do not push our product, make them think on why they must buy, entice them. So when you're talking about selling, it's all making them think. It's all about asking questions. When we tell them, it's all about pushing our product. So are we buying the product? Are we selling our product? Are we selling the product or are we telling the product? Because when we are talking about telling, we need to, if we are not going to buy, how can we tell? When you are talking about telling, are we practicing what we are preaching? So it's a very beautiful saying in English, practice what you preach. And to practice what you preach, you need to believe in yourself. And to believe in yourself, would you buy the product? So it all starts with, if you don't buy a product, how can you sell? So the whole idea of a good salesperson is all about how he goes about making sure that the customer buys his product rather than pushing and forcing, imposing himself on the customer. And in this process, there are lots of other elements that come into play. Though we are talking about selling, selling is nothing but another form of communication. Because we are helping the customer buy the product, there are 4 key elements that get into play when we are talking about salesmanship. The key element is that we need to be good listeners. And if we have to listen, we have to make the customer talk. How do I make the customer talk? It's all about probing. It's all about asking questions, making him think, making him respond. And it's based on what he responds that you have to listen. And to ask the appropriate question, the key element is how well do I understand the customer? And that talks about another skill. How well do I empathize with the customer? How well do I put myself in the customer's shoes to think? So therefore, if you don't believe in your buying the product, how can you sell? So it all starts with understanding the customer, putting yourself in his place to think, making him think. You need to ask him questions. To ask him questions, we need to listen. And at the end, it's all about putting everything in a positive frame of reference. Unless I make the customer think positively about the product, about the services, about my experiences, he will not come back. He will not think about it from a negative perspective. So the idea is, how do I put it positively? It's called the positive frame of reference. So there are primarily 4 skills which we talk about in salesmanship. It is about understanding the customer, is helping him to think by asking questions, about us listening to the customer and putting everything in a positive frame of reference. And that is what makes the customer buy our product.